I'm going to talk to you about how AI can be used to support creating helpful content programmatically. It's a bit of a mouthful, but hopefully it will make sense as we go through. So firstly, a bit about me. So I'm Principal Data Science Performance Marketing and SEO here at Sanity. I've been here around 2 years, and I sit within the demand generation team. I got into SEO around 16 years ago, so I feel like a bit of a veteran now. And when I got into SEO, things like the Google dance was still spoken of. And if anyone doesn't know what the Google dance is, I'll let you look that up in your own time. But also just to point out the obvious, that's not me dancing in the GIF. That's someone called Peter the Greeter, who works at Google. And I'll let you look up Peter the Greeter in your own time as well. But I think he's probably a bit of a symbol that Google has quite a lot of money to burn. But yeah, I really wanted to just start off with a statement, which is AI shouldn't replace human activity, but it should accelerate it. And I want to dig into a little bit why AI shouldn't just create content with human in the loop. And the first reason why is that it still has some way to go. And I think people can probably relate to me a little bit when I sort of talk about how it's quite easy to persuade AI to kind of go down the wrong path. And you might even do it kind of unintentionally. So I don't know about others, but I have had multiple different occasions where I've been working with ChatGPT, and it's given me some code to implement. I've gone away and implemented it. It's not worked. I've gone back to ChatGPT and told it that it's wrong. It's apologized and thought up a new way of doing it. And then I've later found out that it was actually right all along. And I think that's just a clear example that, you know, it can quite easily change its mind and learn the wrong thing. And therefore that kind of leads it down the wrong path to kind of inaccurate content potentially. And I also found that was true when I created a RAG system, sort of an automated RAG system. For those that don't know, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And essentially means that you plug the AI into a database, and then that augments its knowledge, and it uses that to inform its response. And in this case, this system used Google. So basically how it worked was I would give GPT 3.5 a topic. It would then think up questions to research. I plugged it into Google with the custom search API, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But it would research, it would search for 5 questions, get 5 results for each question, and then use that to give a brief to GPT-4, which would then create the article and give it back to me. And I actually found in some cases, this was returning worse results than if I just left GPT-4 to it. And the reason was that it was trying to fit the brief kind of too strictly. And if it was particularly kind of a complex or nuanced topic, Google's results weren't necessarily the best in terms of kind of providing that brief. So the brief was actually sometimes kind of a bit off, and therefore the article wasn't great. And again, I think it's an example where it's too eager to please and it's too eager to learn, and you can kind of override its kind of correct knowledge by giving it that's something that's kind of a bit off. So just a little bit more information about the custom search API for interest, though, if people are interested in that, and kind of setting up a similar process. So basically, that's a service that Google provides where you actually can access their indexed content and get a JSON response. And you get 100 free searches per day. And the reason why I'm kind of showing you this is because I know a lot of people scrape the Google search results, and it's quite easy to get blocked, and it's kind of against their terms of service. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking this out if you kind of fancy sort of using a search engine alongside AI. So that was the first reason, that kind of AI probably isn't quite ready to take over creating your content yet. And then the second reason is that Google is actively working against unhelpful content. And if you use AI kind of, you know, incorrectly or kind of lazily, it's very easy to create unhelpful content. So they actually launched like a helpful content system in 2022, where they try and look for signals for content that's unhelpful. And if they do find kind of unhelpful content, that can be a site-wide signal. So if you have a lot of unhelpful content on your website, because, you know, potentially you've generated it, or even if it's created by humans, that can then lead to the rest of your website kind of being relegated in the search results to some extent. So, you know, it's something definitely to be mindful of if you're kind of creating content at scale and relying too heavily on AI to do that. They actually then worked on that over a year and a half and then launched a really big update in March 2024. And I'm sure some people will be aware of this. And it's probably the biggest update for, I don't know, a number of years. And sites saw a large drop during March as a result. And this graph shows an example. It wasn't just AI generated content that was impacted. It was human kind of created content as well, but that's kind of beside the point. This update was all focused around that unhelpful content kind of signal. And if you create content at scale with AI and you're not kind of careful enough, one of these kinds of updates might affect you in the future. And then related to that, and I'm sure some people have seen this in the search results because it's very noticeable. Reddit has seen a huge increase in visibility. It's quite difficult to find a search now where Reddit isn't ranking on the first page. So this screenshot's actually from a visibility tracker tool called Systrix, and you can see there's been a huge increase over the last year, and that's because Google's looking to reward real life experience. It's looking to, you know, it feels real life experience adds value to content. And that's quite difficult to add, you know, when you're just generating content with AI, because obviously that's using other people's experiences to create the content. So again, it's just something to be mindful of. You know, you want to work with AI and add this extra value with your own experience rather than just letting AI take over your content. So what's the answer? So as I mentioned, we should collaborate with AI to inspire and speed up our activities. And from the highest level, that's essentially kind of starting with something rather than nothing. So it's much more difficult to create content kind of starting with a blank slate, but AI can provide you with something to kind of work on it as a starting point, you know, a draft. And it's so much easier to kind of get going. And I think that's kind of the way that we need to think about it. We've actually got two tools in the Sanity ecosystem, which will be of interest from this respect. So AI Assist, which I think Josh kind of touched on a little briefly in his presentation. So you can run instructions within documents with that, helping with tasks like metadata, translations, and variants. And that's available on the growth plan. And then the other one is Sanity Create, which uses, which we launched about 2-3 months ago. And it's like an AI-powered writing assistant. And it's free early access, so I definitely recommend going and signing up and having a look at it. And with that, you can use notes. So you can give like the AI assistant notes to kind of work from, and you can collaborate with it to create a document. And you can collaborate with other humans as well. And one way that I've used it is actually defining SEO tests within that. So actually kind of putting some tests like looking at readability, for example. That's something that it's able to look at. So again, I definitely recommend going and having a look at Sanity Create. So that's kind of how, that's some tools that can help individual documents. But what about accelerating starter documents at scale? And by that, I mean, being able to provide AI with a topic list, it will then create content for each topic, and the end result will be unique, relevant, helpful documents for each topic. And populating blocks in this way is the key to higher quality results in terms of those unique, relevant documents. So that kind of goes back to Jamie's presentation. So I've actually set up this whole process in an automated fashion, where I give the system a topic list. And then for each topic, it will populate the hero block, collection block, breakout block, whatever kind of blocks you've defined with block specific prompts. And then at the end, you'll have these blocks that you can then combine into a JSON document. I actually do this outside of the studio at the moment. So I'd love to build this into the studio, but I just use Python and the HTTP API at the minute. So I think it's a really good example of how Sanity can be used to kind of democratize development and content creation. But yeah, I use the asset endpoint, for example, to upload images. I use the invitation endpoint to create documents. So I run the process automated outside the studio, and then it pushes the end result into the studio. And then I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I think Jamie's kind of really covered it. But a page builder can give extra layout flexibility. So obviously the standard approach is kind of having a document type with a fixed structure or predefined fields. And page builder, and it sounds like Jamie's approach, can give even more flexibility. So, it allows you to have a lot more control over or the editor, and therefore kind of the AI more control over what goes where. And that can also help with your approach to optimization. So there's kind of an extra part to the process that you can put on the beginning, which is using kind of data to find out which layout's performing best, and then feed that into the automated process for then creating the document. So the best layout gets fed into the system. And then for each block in that layout, you get the block specific prompts, resulting in the blocks to be combined into the JSON document. So I'm just going to talk a little bit now about how AI can help populate the blocks. So starting at kind of the obvious, which is kind of starter copy. So, if you've got a hero block, that might consist of a title and description. I think there's some specific sort of tips here that can help improve that output, because although you want to review it before it's published, you still want the output to be as high quality as possible, so you're saving as much time for that editor as possible. So examples of kind of improving that quality involve giving it examples. So that's kind of called few-shot learning, particularly of the word length that you desire. So I tend to find that LLMs find it really difficult to work to a word length, but if you give it examples of that word length that you want, it's much more likely to get on the mark. And then remind it not to pay attention to the topic and examples because it's too eager to learn. So you do have to remind it, because one time out of 100, it might actually just write the description according to the example that you've given it. Incrementally build where necessary. So give it all of the document that you've created before that point to make sure that the output is relevant to the overall context. So for example, for this hero block, giving it the title in order to then create the description that's relevant. Tell it to exclude certain words. So I'm sure we've all read copy with certain words that humans kind of rarely use, like furthermore, delve, landscape. Have a dictionary of words and tell it to avoid using them. And then finally, just maybe generate 3 and get it to choose the best one. So again, that's kind of a way of ensuring the best quality output. And you can also get it to output a format so you can adapt it to portable text blocks. So if you've got portable text block in your builder, get it to output Markdown or HTML, change it to portable text by looking for marks, insert an image or a video, and then upload that. You could include RAG as before, so actually get it to do some research. But I tend to find that the best way of improving this in the end was actually to narrow the scope of the research questions. So rather than getting it to think up the questions itself, which is where it starts to go off kind of track, kind of narrow that down so that it's only able to look for certain questions of certain formats. You can also make decisions between content for a block, so it's not all about creation. So for example, we've got a case study block. So I'll have a bank of 10 case studies, and then for the page I'll ask, that particular page I'll ask, or topic, I'll ask the AI which case study is most relevant for the page. And just some tips for this, so reduce the temperature. So basically there's a setting in terms of kind of an LLM that allows it to be more or less creative. And obviously you don't want it to be very creative here. You want it to be quite narrow in terms of just choosing 1 of 5 case studies. So reduce the temperature when you're kind of asking it to complete this task. And then also give information about the organizations in the case studies as well. So don't just get it to rely on its own kind of knowledge of the organizations. The organization name might be a bit ambiguous, so kind of give it background to each organization so you can get the best choice. And then another example is actually making decisions between images. So you can upload various different images and get it to choose the best one for the topic. And this is possible with both GPT Vision and now GPT-4o. So this link points to kind of how you can do it. And basically you can upload an array of images with a prompt. So obviously this kind of lends itself perfectly to uploading an array of images, and the prompt being, which of these is most relevant for a page covering a topic of X. And then it can also help create diagrams as well. So this is something that we do as part of that process. So for a topic, it might be kind of what JSON could represent this topic and how it's related to others. And then it will output the JSON model. You can then create a visualization using your favorite visualization library, open it with an automated browser, and then take a screenshot. And again, similar tips apply here. So give it examples of other JSON sort of models that are similar. Incrementally build, so give it the page so it's perceiving the topic as you're kind of perceiving it when you're writing about it. Reduce the temperature so that the JSON is valid, more likely to be valid. It's less likely to go off-piste. And also generate 3 and get it to choose the best one again. So that was all about kind of creating content or kind of making decisions in order to help create content. But AI can also help assess rather than create helpful content as well. So it can actually help decide whether content is going to be helpful or not. And one example of how we do this, and again, this is outside of Sanity. I use the HTTP API for it, and it's running in Python. But I will extract tickets data from our studio, our community studio, every day. I'll put a summary on it. I'll add tags to it. Then I'll also get the AI to think about how helpful is this to read. And if it passes this test, then it will be published to the website for other people to find within our answers section. So it's just an example of kind of how you can automate deciding whether content might be helpful or not at scale. And they also use a process to help determine similar content to redirect. So obviously we want to avoid kind of confusing scenarios where there's multiple different overlapping tickets available in the answer section of the site. So I'll get kind of answers that have few clicks and impressions. I'll generate a 5-word summary with BERT, which is kind of a free large language model. I'll do the same for the answer page inventory as a whole. I use a fuzzy matching algorithm to find ones that are kind of closely matched. And then I'll give the full pages to AI to decide which ones are actually similar and therefore need to be redirected for the low performers. And then the 301 redirects are uploaded as redirect documents to our redirect manager. And then finally, you can also get AI to rate content according to what Google wants. So I'm sure some of you are aware, but Google for a number of years has had an army of search raters around the world who rate content on a regular basis to sort of test their algorithm. And they give them a document as guidance for this rating. Unfortunately, it's 170 pages long. So I've given the link here in case you want to read it. But I'm guessing it might be a bit too much for some of you. But it can be really useful for then sort of trying to boil down to some kind of prompts that you can give AI to help test your content and how helpful it is. And quite a few GPTs have actually been created based on this. So this is one from someone called Leader. And yeah, it can be quite useful. Some of the devices sometimes a bit generic, as you can see on the right there. But yeah, it's worthwhile checking out if you want. And then I've actually linked here to something that I use, which is kind of more of a truncated version. So if you want to set up something programmatically to kind of assess your content, this is like some self-assessment questions that Google give you that you need to ask yourself about your content. And there's about 30 covering kind of content quality and expertise. And I use this, which is kind of basically a truncated version of that 170-page document. So just to summarize kind of what we've been through. So AI shouldn't replace humans, but can help accelerate activity. AI isn't ready to take over content fully, and it may affect your organic search visibility. Sanity Create and AI Assist can help speed up individual documents through collaboration with AI. AI can also be used to create starter documents at scale using a block approach. So it can help populate copy, decide between elements and create diagrams. Page builder approach can be used for additional layout flexibility. And AI can also help assess quality and similarity of content to help ensure that it is helpful. So that was me, and I hope you found it useful.